Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited. This is the podcast planning party. Some of you registered and a few of you showed up, but shout out to all of you that has made a pivot in your podcast in 2025, maybe despite the things that were going on in your personal and professional lives. When it was hard, when it was difficult, when things stretched you, you still showed up for you. I'm so excited about you getting through 2025, no matter what it looked like, and then you showing up to be intentional for the preparation of 2026 for your podcast. So we're going to get right into this 1 hour, 1 hour webinar, 1 hour session, 1 hour of planning. I want you to have your coffee if you're catching this replay, your water, your tea, whatever makes you most comfortable. I want you to set aside time for yourself to be intentional, where you can take all of this information in and not be distracted by any outside elements or noise. And I want you to show up for you. I want you to apply the things that we're going to share in this 1 hour session. I'm going to begin to share my screen in just a moment. And I want you to not think of this as just another New Year's resolution, but something that you're doing for the scalability of your platform. Okay. And there's going to have to be some work on your part. When I sent out the information yesterday, I made sure to say none of this stuff that I'm going to share is going to be groundbreaking. It's going to have everything to do with what you do and how you apply this information. And it requires for you to set aside time, designate time for yourself, not because you're overstimulated or because you have so many other things going on. It's like be intentional, sit with yourself, think about these things and your answers to these things. And so that is going to have everything to do with you and not that much to do with what we're presenting today. All right, we're going to dive in. If you don't know, I am DaniMarie. I am your podcast coach. I coined myself the podcast princess because I'm forever a student of the game. I eat, live, breathe podcasting. And for me personally, this year, I've been through so much loss. I have lost almost everything, but I've regained it and still had to show up for you guys, still had to continue with my podcast. Life kept telling me adjust, adjust, adjust. And when it's easier to say, I just give up, I throw in the towel, I no longer want to do it, will you continue to show up for yourself? Will you make time for yourself? That's the only way for those of you who say, I want to do this podcasting thing full time. That's the only way it's going to happen is if you make the commitment, if you make the earnest and honest commitment to be diligent and do whatever it takes. Okay. So, Podcast Power Hour, one decision, one focus, one 30-day plan. Today, December 23rd, your 60-minute live session. We're talking about wrapping up 2025 and stepping into 2026 with clarity. Many of you found this platform by way of our Facebook group. Our Facebook group, Podcasting for Newbies, which overnight I just switched it to Plan to Podcast because I had a download. I'm always pivoting when I'm thinking about what will this look like in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years from now. And when I have strategic partnerships in alignment with other companies or corporations or businesses or sponsors, I have to think about, is this going to fit in for the long haul? Is this going to work? Will we gel? If not, I need to pivot. So we changed the group. It's no longer Podcasting for Newbies because quite frankly, I realized that's what kept some of you guys stagnant was the newbies part of it. Some of you guys still felt new. You weren't taking those next steps, or many of you felt like I am not quite a newbie anymore, but I don't feel ready to scale. So we had to change even our podcast community so we can help start to retrain our thinking. All right. So let me tell you about one of the young ladies that I've helped recently. I'm so proud of her. It took her almost 2.5 years, to be honest, to take the leap. And she just released her first episode on Sunday. I've been working with her diligently. She's been attending some of my workshops. She's been attending my weekly podcast meetup groups, but she just took the plunge and started her podcast. Life has gotten in the way. She has lost a lot. She's had to move back home, and she's just the way life would have it, right? So she was living in Las Vegas for a bit and then had to pick back up and move back home for whatever reasons. But she just launched on Sunday. I'm so proud of her. She's spotlighted on our website. So just know that when you work with me, there are some perks. We will give you a spotlight. Um, and so this is Coach Memory, emphasis on the memory, going back to our earlier years, our formidable years when we were a solid family. Now you guys are, you know, broken families, whatever life challenges have gotten in the way. We set up boundaries for ourselves and no longer are as close with our families. We're no longer holding the same traditions. I was talking to Lenard before we started, and at this juncture in life, we're not even that excited about the holidays anymore. So, Coach Memories platform is a safe space bridging elders with their younger selves to honor, heal, and strengthen the Black family. I love her platform. It's so important. And if you go to our website, mind you, I share this all of the time in the podcasting, well, in the now Plan to Podcast group, formerly known as Podcasting for Newbies Facebook group. So this link is easily accessible. I'll drop it in the community here on Zoom right now so the people that are participating can have access to it. It's in the chat. So you guys can read up on her story. You can follow her on the platforms. But the purpose is I was able to help her bring her ideas to life. But also that it wasn't just my doing, it was her taking these steps, her taking the information and applying it, and now seeing the success that she has today. Go support her platform. I'm so excited for her. Kudos to her. But let's get into it. This is a transition moment. 2025 is ending. 2026 deserves intention. It does not deserve the carryover chaos. What does that mean? Just like when you're entering into a new relationship, you don't want to carry that old baggage into that new relationship. You don't want to tarnish something that could be working in your favor. You don't want to carry dead weight, the old way of doing things, toxicity into the new thing. And so think of it the same way when it comes to your podcast. Leave everything from 2025 that no longer serves you behind and move into 2026 with intention, with focus, with clarity. By the end of this hour, you will have clarity on your number one podcast bottleneck. You will also pick one P to focus on for the next 30 days. We're going to get into what that P means. You're going to have a realistic, actionable 4-week sprint plan. And you're going to have a clear before and after snapshot of your podcast. I'm going to drop something else in the chat so that you can use this either during or after we end today. This is the worksheet that I also sent you through email. And let me drop this in the chat. I'm going to be sharing a file. Um, Let us know where you're tuning in from in the chat and what your podcast is about for those of you who are with me in real time.
Okay. Taking my podcast is called Friends, Food, and Relationships. I'm a disabled creator. I am, but I don't talk about that. I talk about the relationships that I built on and offline as I was adding there. It's this has been a journey for me, honestly, and I appreciate you, Marie.
Yeah, absolutely, Leonard. You are appreciated as well. What I love about you, and I've shared this in the past before, is that you're so diligent to always show up for yourself, right? And I know that you already shared with me in the past that you have had to make some pivots in your podcast. So before it was more a focus on people with disabilities, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, it was more about my life, about disabilities, and I was getting 2 listens per episode. I'm like, no, that's not what I want to be doing.
This is
doing all this work.
jumping.
I'm doing all this work for just 2 listens. No, it's time to pivot.
Mm-hmm. Right. But what made you ultimately decide to pivot?
Um, that was the catalyst that the 2 listens from 2 friends of mine that actually were the only ones listening to me. I'm like, ugh, I'm doing all this work for 2 people. Sorry about bumping that mic.
I
So I
don't know why
decided
this is jumping. So
I
you
decided
had to refocus. So what made you make that determination?
a lot of thinking, a lot of thinking. Do I want to keep doing this? That's one of the first questions I asked myself.
I'm trusting that you went and you saw some of your numbers, like you said, and then you said, I think I want to move into a relationship slash food slash friends conversation. So
Right.
why did you make that particular leap from
Because
talking about disabilities moving into food, relationships, and family?
oh, let me explain why. Because I have a lot of friends that are not, that most disabled people will not meet, like IT people, 911
Hmm.
dispatchers, etc. For volunteer work that I've done, that I do and I've done in the past. So, so those are interesting relationships to talk about. You know,
Hmm.
that was one of my reasons why I called it that, because it was too much, it was too nichey, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So you felt like you were in a box, you were looking at the numbers told you that you needed to make a pivot. So I love and appreciate that. Um, and by the way, niching is extremely important. It's something that you learn in your one of the first P's that we talk about in your plan. But two, relationship categories is pretty popular in podcasting. So what you started with and what you moved to, I think was a great idea. And another P is performance, checking your analytics to tell you whether you need to make a switch or not. So I commend you for looking deeper, looking behind the veil, looking and tracking your analytics and making the determination that it was important for you to expand your niche. So kudos to you. Um, Go ahead
I
if you
have
want to share, then we're going to get back into it.
Yes, I have a tendency to check every morning my numbers.
Yeah,
That's
extremely, extremely important.
that's one of the first things that I do. The first thing I pull up my numbers and look at them.
Love that.
And if
Love it.
and if you want to really keep track of your numbers, take screenshots and leave it on your computer.
Right. Yeah, you can leave it as a screensaver to help motivate you, right? So let's talk about the 5 Ps. I mentioned two of them just now. Um, you guys, and one of the other things, it's so frustrating. I was talking about this. The moment you have to really lean in, there's glitchiness, there's tech issues. So, pardon me for experiencing tech issues in real time, but we're going to persevere. Okay,
Tell
there
me
we go.
about it. Tell me about it.
Yes, exactly. So this is not going to be a lecture. It is interactive, as you hear Leonard and I going back and forth talking about his podcast. Again, I want you guys to be intentional. I want you to have a notepad ready. Leonard, I hope you have what you need. And then I did just drop a link in the chat with the file so that you can use that, download it to your computer, and you can do the work after we wrap or while we're working on this session. So it's going to be a lot of stuff that you'll see on the screen that you can actually start doing, but also the workbook kind of works in tandem. So let's get into these 5 Ps. These are the 5 things that I think it takes to make a successful podcast. Yeah, don't do that, my neck. Okay. These are the 5 things that it takes to have a successful podcast. Number one is planning. Without a plan, you're building on a rocky foundation. I know all of you have heard of if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. It seems so cliche, but it's absolutely true because a lot of you guys, what I experience in the group is you come in with these big ideas, and then a lot of people, and I love what you said, Leonard. This was just a week ago. You were like, well, somebody asked a question, and you said, well, that's very broad. They asked about equipment. And what they don't realize is you're going to get a million different answers based on how everybody else is doing their podcast. You need to figure out what's best for you and your platform. Are you a solo podcaster, or will you need a setup that accommodates a panel of podcasters? And so planning is super important. Everything from the name of your podcast, everything from your logo, your artwork, your cover art, everything from where you're going to show up online, how you're going to meet the people on across multiple platforms, your equipment, how long are your episodes? Will you continue to record consecutively, or will you break things up into different seasons? Will you have segments in your podcast? What are the topics and things that you're going to discuss? What's the niche? Who's your target audience? That goes all into the planning. If you don't have that, you're going to be confused. Or if you run into a plateau, you won't know how to pivot because you did not have a plan that told you what your 3 year goals are, your 5 year goals. Or if you have somebody that says, hey, I like what you're doing, I want to sponsor you, then how are you going to relay to them the proper information without the plan, without the pitch deck? All of that goes into the planning process. It's your concept, your consistency, and your systems.
One of the things that I
Two.
did when I got that
Mm,
question, when I saw that question, I answered it with a question.
mm-hmm.
I told her I was going to do that. Whoever that was, I told her. I said I'm going to answer it with a question. I put questions out there for them.
I like that. Jesus in the Bible used to speak in parables too, and make people actually think about what they're talking about. Think about what you're thinking about is something that I use all of the time. Production is the second P. Recording, editing, sound quality. How are you going to constantly have crisp audio and give the listeners and audience a great experience? How are you going to produce everything from the recording? So, including the platform that you're using, how are you going to record? How are you going to edit and chop it up? Are you going to keep it authentic and take out a few of the mistakes, or are you going to get rid of all of the mistakes, all of the dead pauses, all of the ums and ahs, and the sound quality? That all goes into the production. Third P, platform. This is where you live online, your branding, your reach, the platform you use to record, and the platform you use to distribute to all of the other podcast directories. Fourth P, performance. Tracking your numbers. We talked about that. Your numbers, your numbers, your numbers. How well are you doing? How do you know if you're doing well? Are people listening to the full duration of the episode, or are they dropping off? You know this because you're looking at your numbers. I was working with somebody a couple years ago, and every podcast is about a 2 hour long podcast. But when I was working with him, I went into the analytics and I realized people were only watching for 15 minutes. All of that 2 hour work, and you are getting people to only stick around for 15 minutes. There's a problem there. There's something that you need to do. Now, I understand if you want to, hold on.
Are you still up? Because I don't hear you.
Hmm.
Okay, okay,
So when
perfect.
it comes to the gentleman who was doing the 2 hour long podcast, and people were only tracking for 15 minutes, that lets me know that either what you're doing can be condensed down to 15 minutes, or what you're doing, people are not interested. It's not actually engaging enough. And so you can do things in a different fashion. Either you can take that 2 hour long segment and break it down over time in 15-minute episodes. And so what? Uh, 15, 30, 45, 60. So you can essentially get like 8 different episodes out of 2 hour long content. But that was his choice to continue doing 2 hours, putting in all that effort. I'm thinking you can break it down a little bit, especially if you know people are only staying engaged for 15 minutes. But that tells you the performance and how well you're performing, and if you need to make any changes and exactly where. It's also a barometer for your growth, a feedback. Are you looking at what people are seeing in the comments? Are you taking their feedback and applying it? Are you hearing from your audience? Are they enjoying it? Are they giving you the review? And then promotion. And the promotion piece. How are you constantly making sure that you're getting reached? Are you reaching out to people through direct messages? Are you doing the short clips on multiple social media platforms? Are you going out and shaking hands and going to networking events to promote your podcast? All of these things are essential. These are the 5 P's framework. Some of you guys may be well performing in maybe the performance part, like you're getting the downloads, but you're not promoting enough. So you've hit a plateau. Or some of you guys might do well in the production, and then you're not using the right platforms to help you get out. Or maybe the planning piece is where you're stuck. All of this is what we're talking about today. So I want you to put in the chat, where do you think your biggest bottleneck is of these 5 P's? I'm going to give you some time.
I'll give it to you live. I don't have a problem with doing that. My bottleneck is promotion.
Promotion. Tell me more.
Okay, I was promoting on Twitter. I got my account got something happened and it got removed. But I'm one thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna recreate an email which I don't have for the podcast, and I'm gonna go back in there. I don't know if I got hacked or what happened there. Back to you.
So wait, what are you doing for promotion? I heard only one thing. I was expecting some
Oh,
more.
I okay. I do a lot of if you see I do a lot of I promote in like Facebook. I promote in Facebook groups. I promote on your group. I do a lot of online promotion, a lot of sharing of links. That's a
Okay, that's
that's a
one thing also. Sharing of links is not the only way, but that is one way. Promotion also looks like, are you going live to talk about your episode? Or if you see somebody's having a conversation about a topic that you just covered in your episode, share. Give context with what you share, not just putting a link up. Do you have an email list? Are you building one? Are you sharing simultaneously across all platforms at the same time so you get the best reach and scalability? So that's another P, but we're going to work on that. And I'm so glad that you mentioned it and that you're transparent.
and I'm going to create an email list, and once I get my email, I'm going to do all those things. You know,
I
I do.
receive that. I hear you. Okay, so then I want you to write this down. This part I do want you to write down because I want to create space for the people who are listening to the replay to actually think about this and not just constantly be watching. So this is going to be a break where we're not speaking. We're literally going to rate ourselves in every category, 1 to 10. The planning, the production, the platform, performance, and promotion. These are literally things that I have noticed the theme in the industry. So this is my framework. And I believe if we were going to add anything else, sometimes I use these interchangeably. The other P's I could add would be pivot. I love that one. And then profit. So we can add that to the list. But these are what make a podcast successful. If you can get really good about these things, you won't really have to pivot often, and then you can start profiting right away. So I want you to be diligent, take some time, and be honest with yourself, and write these things out. And I'm going to give us about 60 seconds for those of you who are listening. I'm going to be quiet. Leonard's going to be quiet. He's going to write these things down himself. And I'm going to also do this exercise, and I'm going to rate my planning, production, platform, performance, and promotion. All right. So it's 12:44 on my clock, and we're going to wait just a moment until 12:45, and then we're going to give it 60 seconds. Hold on. All right, time is starting now.
15:45.
All right. So we're going to move along. Hopefully, you guys completed that exercise planning, production, platform, performance, and promotion. You rated yourself 1 through 10 because we're going to use this information for the next part. Okay, planning. Again, this is your concept, consistency, and systems. A lot of people, when you talk about systems, people don't have a system. The podcast should be on a system. It should even be automated where things are just going up on their own, or people could find your podcast and they can become a guest without you having to send them a link. They can go to your website and they can get everything that they need. If you're doing podcasting as a way to market your product, brand, or services, your digital downloads, your links, everything should be easily accessible. Then people should be on this CRM where they're getting automated emails and you're nurturing those leads. You should have people on an email list so that whenever you're going live or whenever you do a new upload of the podcast, they get that email blast. That is all a part of systems which fall under the planning. What is the real job of your podcast in the next 12 months? I want you all to take some time to answer that. Is it, I want to get 100 new downloads? Or is it, I want to use my podcast to acquire 10 new leads or 10 new clients? Is it, I want to build a community on Substack or Patreon? What is the real job of your podcast? Thinking about 2026, what is going to be the goal?
Is that something you want us to talk about?
Sure.
My goal here is to increase my my downloads to and also reach more people because I believe I have a message to give to people.
I love that. And it might be that more reach, more audience retention. How are you going to retain your listeners? I get new listeners all of the time, but I don't do such a great job of retaining them. And I learned by constantly checking and tracking my performance. One way that you can work to retain listeners is you have them in kind of a loop. So everything that you do should kind of connect and be a thread. And so that's another reason why I constantly pivot is because I want to make it so that those listeners are coming back and they're like, okay, that was good, but I need more. I want more. I want more. Right. So putting them in a loop and creating a thread that they can follow back up on. For those of you who are catching the replay, your goal may be different for the next 12 months. Again, it might be more downloads, it might be more leads, it might be more prospects, it might be better systems. You have to decide that for yourself. Again, this is why it's important for you. Although Leonard and I are sharing, don't let this deter you and take away from what you will do differently in your podcast. And you have to plan. All right. So take some time and think about this. Next P, production, the recording, the editing, and the sound quality. Where are you spending too much time on tasks that don't move the needle? Is the editing your bottleneck or is the batching the problem? Are you even batch recording? I just spoke with one of the producers that we've worked with in the past. Let them know, hey, in January, we're going to pick 4 days out of the month. And I've done this before. When I first got started with my very first podcast ever, before I released one episode, I hired a producer. We recorded all 20 episodes. And then we released the episodes week by week for 20 weeks straight. Nobody's doing that, right? That's unless you're talking to nobody's doing that. I think that's unprecedented. Um, because some people want to keep it relevant, keep the content fresh. And then when you start doing that, you run into the situation where now you can't keep up. So, yeah, I paid him $650 a month, 4,000 dollars, 45,000, no, 4,500, excuse me, over the course of the 20 weeks. And yeah, we recorded 20 episodes, you guys. But that's what batch recording looks like. It doesn't mean 20 episodes, but it might mean like you spend, one day out of the week to get at least 2 or 3 episodes recorded. And that comes with a solid plan. How are you going to achieve that? That comes with producing. So if your biggest bottleneck is the editing process, make sure to write that down. If your biggest bottleneck is batch recording, if your biggest bottleneck is getting the right recording equipment, if your biggest bottleneck is not knowing what editing platforms are out there or wanting to pivot the ones that you're currently using, make sure to write all of that down.
One thing that happened. One thing that happened to me is I was doing 2 episodes a week and I was rushing them out. That's why I went back to 1 episode a week.
I just got, my boys just got some visitors to our home. What did you say your biggest bottleneck was?
My other podcast, I was doing 2 episodes a week, and then I was like, ugh, and I was rushing them out. I was coming home from doing things and having to sit down and record, and I felt like I was rushing it, so I said I'm gonna go back to 1 episode a week. That's all, because that's all I can handle.
That's real. How many pivots have you made in 2025, would you say?
Um, Actually, one pivot and the episode, 2 pivots. So the episode number and the name change.
How long have you been podcasting in general?
That started during COVID. I don't know how long it's been, but that's when I
Mm-hmm.
started during COVID.
Love that. Love that. Next P,
Hmm.
performance. Do you actually enjoy making this podcast? You'll know because it will show up. Are you drained when you're finished? Are you overwhelmed? Are you constantly telling yourself that you're doing too much or there has to be a better way? Are you getting the numbers? Hold on. Sorry, you guys.
That's all right. You got a family. That's okay.
Yeah, conveniently, you guys, my boys is because the kids are out. My boys' friends just came in, and they always come over to check on the boys and come through our garage and take all of our toys and stuff. Um, so then my performance sometimes is stifled because I have kids. And one good thing is I put them in school recently. I used to be a homeschooling mom, so they were literally with me all of the time. But I recognize that my performance could be a lot better because I prioritize my children. So sometimes when I started in the beginning, you would hear them in the background. I try not to make too many apologies for that because I know that my platform was set up for other women who are like, hey, if Danny can do it, I can do it. And so I got a lot of that kind of feedback. I appreciate about you that you just kept going. All right, next P, promotion. Are you promoting with intention or hope? I think if you are waiting to the day of the podcast that it goes live to start promoting, then you're really not doing it with intention. You're doing it with the hope. If you wait to the last minute, do you guys follow back up? I have this poll up in the group. And I was asking how many of you guys are actually following back up with your guests? How many of you are actually building relationship with your guests even beyond the podcast?
Let me talk about
Mm,
that for a second because
sure.
I have a guest that I spoke to. She wrote a book. She has a disability. She used to work. She retired, and actually, she and I continued to talk. She went to Africa,
Oh,
uh,
wow.
not to Africa, to oh God, down under, Australia, and she sent me photos of her trip, just out of the blue. I didn't ask. She just did it. We continue to chat. Almost, we don't chat every day, but we do chat.
Yes, I love that. And I think that many of us do keep up through social media. Also, going back to that word I used before, a CRM, customer relationship management, or client relationship manager. These are ways that you can set up an automated system so that you're constantly doing check-ins. And so you can have a check-in for every month where an email is going out. Hey, don't forget to listen and share the episode. Hey, just checking back. Would you like to do a collaborative project based on how well the podcast episode went? Hey, the numbers are doing this, this, and that. I went back to go look at the episode, and this is how the episode is still tracking. There were so many people that left great reviews under the episode. Would be month four. Um, would you like to come back and do another webinar, or would you like to do like a master class in month five? So every month you could be doing some type of check-in so that by the time you're ready to do that next episode, or maybe you're asking your previous guest to do business with you, like make a purchase from you, it's easier to convert them because you've kept that lead nurtured throughout the whole year. So that's what promotion looks like. Or, like I said, sending out your podcast episode to guests, sending them a DM. There's things like autoresponders on Instagram that if somebody comments one word, they can automatically get a link to your podcast and you don't have to actually be present to do it. So there's promotional tools that you could be using that many of us are not aware of. So that's promoting with intention and not just relying on, which a lot of people do, and it disturbs me. I have to be honest. A lot of people share the link. I can't hear you, Lennar. A lot of people just share the link to their podcast, and that's not going to help you get the numbers. It's like doing things strategically across the board.
Stop listening button. Yeah. Now you can hear me because I was trying to tell my computer to not record, not listen to my voice. Um,
Okay. All
but
right. So we went through the P's: plan, production, platform, performance, and promotion. This is how you know where your bottleneck is. Somewhere in those P's, you are telling yourself, you're processing and filtering, hey, I already know that my biggest bottleneck is this. It shows up in multiple answers. You've been frustrated with this thing for 3 months or more. And if you were to fix this one thing, you know that this would make everything else easier. So that's your clue where your biggest bottleneck is. If you were listening to all of the P's, you heard a theme in there. I was sharing with you the different P's and the different things that go into each of them, helping you to identify where your P bottleneck might be. And so you listened and you filtered and you were telling yourself, "Hey, yeah, that's definitely me." That performance or um the planning process. I just never even got into planning. I never even started a plan. And so now I'm finding myself having to backtrack and go back. Do any of you guys even have, going back to the plan, do you even keep track of everything? Like, do you have Google files for every part of your plan so that if you, for whatever reason, brought in a co-host or if you brought in a virtual assistant, you can give them all of your information, all of your files, and it would be a smooth transition? Are you tracking that way? If it was to come down to your promotion, are you doing things like a webinar similar to like this to help promote? Are you going on other people's platforms and telling them about what you do
No,
as a guest podcaster?
I
So,
haven't I haven't done too much of that, but I see the winning though. I see the advantageous stuff that that does.
yeah. So, for your next 30 days, I want you to pick one P. Pick one P. And I want you to determine what that P is based on the things that we shared and the things that you know to be true about yourself and how well your podcast is performing or if it needs to excel in any of those areas. And here's what you're going to do. In week one, the foundation. You're going to audit your current state of affairs. How are things doing? How well are you performing? On Monday, what are you doing for the podcast? On Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so on and so forth. What are you doing? I want you to track it. Define in your own words, what does a good performance look like? You have to define that. Is it getting 10 new listeners every week? Is it building community and getting 10 new people to join your community? Or is it getting 10 new reviews? Define what good looks like in your own words. And then name one small win. So, week one is building on the foundation. You need to audit what you're doing. You need to define what good looks like. And you need to set a goal of one small win. Week two, action. I want you to take the first concrete action. So if you are saying, I want good to me looks like I'm getting 2 new downloads, then you need to put that as the goal and then reverse engineer it. So, how can I get 10 new downloads every month?
There's something that people do that I don't agree with, where they ask their friends and family to listen. I don't do that because I want it to be generic listeners.
Not generic, but organic.
I'm sorry,
Yes,
organic.
I'm breaking.
Yeah, because if you do that, that number is fake. At the beginning, there it's fake. You're not. They're not listening because they like it. They're listening because it's your family, and that's something that I've never done, and I don't plan on doing.
Yes, I have a good friend, Gerald, who's also a podcast coach. And he also tells people not to share it with their friends and family because, for the most part, they're doing it out of pity. And that means that they don't listen to the entire episode. And that actually hurts your numbers, especially on YouTube. If they drop off without listening to the full thing, that tells YouTube, hey, this isn't good. So it is good to get organic people who are actually interested in the things that you're talking about. As for week two, this is when you're putting the action into practice. Take that first concrete action, document the process, and notice what works and what doesn't work. All right, so you're doing a self audit of the things that are actually working after you've already started to implement the new strategies. So maybe your first action, like I said, if you want to get 10 new downloads that week, then maybe you're going to do a better job with promotion. So you're going to reverse engineer that. I know that on Monday, I'm going to promote to Instagram. On Tuesday, I'm going to go live on Facebook to talk about the episode. On Wednesday, I'm going to do a whole bunch of short clips. On Thursday, maybe I share a bit about the person that was on the episode, give people some background into that person. On Friday, I'm going to do some behind the scenes content that I recorded from the previous week when I was preparing myself to record for that interview. On Saturday, I'm going to share more short clips. And then on Sunday, I'm going to reach out to people again on social media to follow up with them and ask them if they had a chance to listen. So maybe you need to start reverse engineering. Once you know what your goal is, then you can start to work backwards to make sure um, meet that goal. And then as you're doing things, you're documenting the process. So then you can go back and track what works and what doesn't work. Maybe you audit yourself every night before you go to bed. Create yourself a nice self audit list, or maybe you do it at the end of the week when you have more time. and say, I'm going to give myself an hour to go back and track the numbers to see if I met my goal. You have to figure that part out and what works best for you. Next thing, week 3 is the momentum. It says it takes about 21 to 90 days to create a habit. So we're doing this in 1 month, about 30 days for most months, right? So week 3 is when you start to pick up speed. So you made revisions based on the things that you learned because you've been tracking, you've been auditing yourself, you're checking out what's going well, what isn't working. You're immediately doing away with the things that no longer serve you, what's not working. So you're refining based on what you've learned, and then you're creating a system that makes everything sustainable so that you're not burnt out for every day of the week. Maybe it's easiest for you to do everything in one day. I think that's probably more difficult for some people, but if you give yourself 30 minutes a day to work on a goal, and again, this is why the plan is important because you're going to tell yourself on Monday, it's a bit chaotic. I'm already doing so much when I'm getting back to work. So I don't want to overwhelm myself. So maybe Monday is a less promotion day, but it's more like just kind of fine tuning stuff, working on the smaller things and prepping things for the week ahead. Tuesday is when I get dive a bit deeper, so on and so forth. But you're tracking this and you're creating the momentum and you're creating processes to make everything that you do sustainable. And then you're celebrating yourself because sometimes we can get caught up in like what's not working and we forget to celebrate the small wins. And week 4, you're going to lock in the habit. Okay, after evaluating myself for 3 weeks, I'm finally committed to this process. This is what works well. This is what I noticed that I do well naturally, organically. So I'll continue to do that. And these are the things that I decided to trash because I just could not keep up. It was overstimulating. It was exhausting. It took too much of me. So I'm going to stick to this new way. This is the new system. And then again, going back to week 1, where you're going to define what good looks like, now you're defining what a success metric looks like. So you can even ask ChatGPT to help you come out with a success metric. All right. Success equals behavior changes. You guys have all heard of the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. A lot of you guys are there. Um, we have somebody entering the space. Success equals behavior changes. Planning means I have a 6-week content calendar. Do any of you guys even do that? Do any of you even say, I'm going to map out my next 6 weeks to make my life easier? Or are you trying to come up with stuff on the fly? And then when it comes to your 6-week content calendar, do you know that there are tools out there like Hootsuite, like Repurpose.io, like Opus Clips? You can even use Canva. These things help you schedule out your content for the 6 weeks so you don't have to constantly be working on the podcast every single day. If you put forth the effort on one day to make sure that everything is batch recorded, your calendar is synced so that it will release your content, even with Meta Business, if you have Meta Business. This is where it combines Instagram and Facebook. And depending if you're using threads or not, it also includes threads, but it allows for your content to be multicasted across various platforms. Production. I batch record 2 weeks at a time. There was a time when I was doing guest interviews, I would charge for people to be able to skip the line because I was so good at batch recording. I would record weeks in advance. So, one of the perks with buying the package is you could skip the line because I was allowing for batch recording. I mean, because I was doing batch recording and I had worked myself up to get about 2 to 3 weeks of it, recordings. All right. So this, again, when you're doing good things about how you show up, how you plan, and how you produce, then you can start to do things that help you profit much easier. Platform. Make a commitment to post 2 weeks,
Some
2
time.
clips a
Okay.
day. 2 clips a day. when you know, going back to the plan, who your audience is and who you serve, right? So my audience at one point when I was doing my mother and daughter duo podcast with my mom, my audience was millennial women, solo parenting women. And I knew that those women mostly showed up on Pinterest, they showed up on YouTube, and they showed up on Instagram. So I spent a lot of my time on those platforms. Some of you guys are overextending yourself because you're showing up on platforms where your audience is not even at. Some people are on TikTok appealing to a younger audience who are not typically going to be the ones that convert. They're not going to be the ones that make the conversion, meaning they're not going to join your community. A lot of them are just doing this scroll, 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 scroll. They don't care to engage with your content, but for the 3 seconds, whether you can catch their attention or not. So why would you be showing up and putting all of your efforts on TikTok if your audience isn't there? If your audience are middle-aged men or women over 60, they're not always on TikTok. So that would not behoove you to be on TikTok. I'm not saying anything against TikTok. I'm just saying you have to know in your plan what your audience is, who they are, what their needs are, what their interests are, what their hobbies are, and that helps you determine whether they show up online and in person, and that's where you go to meet them. When it comes to performance, I ship on time and feel energized. Is that the case? Or do you feel depleted after you have recorded your episodes? If you feel depleted, that means there's something in your performance that you could do better, or something in your production or the planning to set yourself up where you're not overextending yourself or where you're not strapped for time. And the promotion, I use a 3-step promotion sequence. I go to Facebook, I go to Threads, I go to YouTube. Even on YouTube now, they've expanded things. So now there's a community tab on YouTube that you can post to. You can add a short, you can do the long video. They even have a course now, and they also have a podcast RSS feed on YouTube. So are you guys familiar with that? Are you using your time wisely to promote your podcast? You have to start assessing and evaluating things that are working well for you, and then stop doing those things that no longer serve you, that made you feel depleted, that made you feel the ick, that made you feel overwhelmed. Stop forcing it and start to do things that feel best aligned with the way you do things, the way things that work in your natural schedule, things that work organically. Leonard, you've been dying to say something. Go ahead.
Yes, you brought a topic up. If you go on YouTube the way I do through an RSS feed, the only drawback to that is that it doesn't automatically go live. You have to go in there and click a live.
What is that?
It doesn't like on the like on a regular podcast platform. It shows up and it goes live, right? But in YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
you have to click you have to click publish every time, which is aggravating like crazy. Cause you got to remember to do that.
Well, that's fair enough. But then again, going back, hello, cousin Ed, welcome. So going back to the 5 P's: planning, production, platform, performance, promotion. So we're talking about platform. Are you aware of all of the different?
And production platform
You're going in and out quite a bit, cousin Ed.
is trying
But
to repeat it. I
go
can
ahead.
put myself back on mute. No, I was trying to put it in my voice notes. I was sorry about that. I thought I was on mute. I apologize.
Oh, it's okay. And then I can type it in the chat and we can go back to that screen too. So let me do that. That was, I think we were on 19. Um, but yeah, these are the 5 P's that make a successful podcast: plan, platform, production, performance, promotion. And then when you get really good about that, we can add 2 more P's. Then you start to profit, or occasionally you'll have to pivot. Um, but what I was going to say is With Substack, this goes back into okay, you made an observation, but is that observation based in reality of all platforms, Leonard? Substack allows you to be live, record live natively in the app. And then after you record live, it's one of the best ecosystems that I found. You automatically get clips for your episode. I know some other streaming platforms are similar, but it's also connected to your email list. And then it automatically goes out to all of the podcast directories because of the RSS feeds. So you might need to make a pivot and move over to a platform such as Substack if you're finding that what you're using currently is not working. I know you use Spotify.
Yeah, that having Spotify has limited some things, but I'm making
Mm-hmm.
it work. You know,
See, and you don't even have to stretch yourself to make it work, quote unquote. You could move to a platform where you don't have to make it work. And that's why these 5 Ps, this framework is important. So you're constantly checking and determining, okay, is this working well for me or do I need to switch things up? So Substack, I am, like I said, I'm the pivot queen. I don't mind moving in a heartbeat. Sometimes it's not the best for the audience. So if you can move in such a way that, it's a seamless transition, great. But um yeah, with Substack, I love everything. It's natively in the app. You get quality, you can record live, you're going to get those clips. It also sends it out to everybody on your email list. So I have been working on building my email list. I imported my email list. Maybe about 20 people fell off, so they unsubscribed, and that's okay. Most people have stayed, and then I still get high retention numbers for the people that are opening up the emails. But Substack has been a godsend. I've used every platform you can think of because I'm a coach, right? So it's important for me to check things out, constantly be ahead of the curve. So when it came to like creating a blog, I've used Blogger, I've used Mailchimp, I tried to use Beehive, but I love Substack. I recommend Substack because it's the best platform that does all of those things that we need them to do. So I recommend, Leonard, that you start doing Substack. Um,
I'm definitely gonna look into that because I'm having to schedule things and do things that are not native.
mm-hmm. Makes sense. All right, we're gonna be wrapping this up soon. We've been here for a while. Thank you for those of you who are able to participate. So, how are you feeling about your podcast now? How are you feeling about your podcast now, Leonard, with what you've kind of learned so far?
Let me say,
Are you
when I
still hopeful?
yes, and I'm gonna say this to you. When I was doing the old podcast, it was draining me at the end. I'm like, I gotta change this. But now I love getting up here. I know I love getting up here. When I turn on my equipment to record, I actually feel happy to do it.
I love that. I love that. So, what are you going to be doing differently? What 2 to 3 things will you stop doing? I want you to write this down, take inventory. What 2 to 3 things will you stop doing moving into 2026? I want you to take some time to think about that. I'm going to um, give you 2 minutes to think about that. And I'm going to drop the link in the chat for Cousin Ed so that he can also take a look at the slides while I let you think about those 2 to 3 things. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Drop that in the chat. Hold on.
Stop video button.
All right. Um, you're welcome. I see the chat. Let me come back on video. All right, I'm winded because I went to go check on my kids too. They're outside playing with their buddies. Podbean, Cousin Ed, I have not used, but I hear it is a decent platform. What I did was compared multiple apps, so I'll share that link with you as well. But I want to hear from Leonard or Cousin Ed. What did you guys say are the things you're not bringing into 2026?
For me, I'm thinking of swapping my. I'm thinking of swapping another to another platform. Because I don't like the way um Spotify limits us. I'm looking for another free one that gives me almost everything that Spotify does plus more.
I love that. Um, yeah, Substack, by the way, is free, and you can still set it up with their tiers so that different subscribers can subscribe to you. So I have a $50 subscriber on Substack.
I didn't know Substack was free.
Substack is absolutely free. So that probably will be the next thing that I share, how to create a Substack and what are you going to do on Substack in the coming weeks when we get into the new year. Let me see. Ed, you're more than welcome to come off mic if you would like.
Yeah, excuse me, I'm driving, so I apologize for the noise. But for myself, I'm gonna look. I went ahead and brought in most of my podcasts to Substack a couple months ago, so I'm gonna sit down and play with it some more and see if I really want to cut over to it. But one thing you mentioned was planning out more of the podcast. Mine is an organic podcast. It comes from the heart, and I, just speak what's going on at that time. So just think about how I can plan out some more of the episodes, but that's mainly it.
No, I appreciate that. And maybe the planning process, because you do want to keep it fresh and organic, maybe you still record um organically. So whatever, so for instance, you can still go live. You can look at the news. I don't know what's happening in social media, but I'm going to look. Maybe you have a few apps that you lean on, and so those are things that you automatically have set up to your phone so you get the notifications. So when you wake up, you have the notifications, you know, from Forbes and from whatever other outlets what things are happening. You use like two or three trusted sources, and then by 10 o'clock a.m., you're going live to report back on what those things are. So it's native to the audience and to you, but maybe how you repurpose all of that content is systematized. So after you've recorded, then you automatically have a system that will download that content for you. You'll put it into like a Opus Clips. Opus Clips will take that long form content and break it down into shorts. And then you can automatically through Opus Clips have those shorts scheduled out to go out. So maybe that part, since you want things to be more organic with how you do the content, then maybe how you release the content is what you systematized. Or through like Substack, like I said, if you start to build an email list, once you go live in Substack, since you want things to be organic, you go live at 10 a.m. every day. I would suggest that you look at Joy Reid, Don Lemon, even if you don't necessarily care for these people, which I do, but if you don't care for these people, you could still look at how they do things on Substack. There's a few others, but reach out to me if you need a good list. But they go live every day like clockwork on Substack, and it's shared across various platforms because they use Substack amongst other tools, maybe like StreamYard or Ecamm or Riverside to multicast. So that's their process. People know that they can come to them and get news every day on Substack Live at whatever time, right?
Mhm.
So there's still ways that you can do it and still also have a system going on. But then I wanted to share with you guys this tool because I think it's also helpful. Um, if you're using Substack, maybe you don't still need to use Podbean, depending on what your needs are, but you could use both. I do use Substack, YouTube, Spreaker, and Red Circle. So I use a lot of different
Never,
platforms. Hmm?
never heard of, never heard of Speaker or Red Circle, so I have to look into those too.
Spreaker is probably the best one to get monetized on, regardless of where your numbers are. Red Circle is probably the best one to collaborate with other podcasters and do cross promotion.
Hmm.
Um, and they do have some monetization baked in there too.
Is
But
that in
but you
your
have to cross a threshold. Hmm?
is that in your slideshow as well? Those two names.
No. But I will share all of this information too. If you're driving, I'll make sure to send this to you also.
Okay.
Um, hold on. Tell us about your podcast if you don't mind, Ed.
No problem. Cousin Ed's Corner, um, in season 4, over 500 episodes already in. We do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Our staple shows are Motivational Monday, Wind Down Wednesday, and Thank God for Everything on Friday. I have a couple other episodes that I throw in there. Love to have you on. When my sister wins, we all win. That's on Wednesdays. I do that sometime, and I do a Financial Freedom Friday every so often. So think about it as a full network. Uh, been podcasting for over 14 years. I was on another podcast called Mr. Moody's Neighborhood, and Moody is actually my cousin, and I got the name Cousin Ed from there, and kept it, and went with the same concept of neighbors. So Cousin Ed's Corner, you come to my block and we just have a conversation like you came to your cousin's house.
I love that. There was a time when I first got started, same thing for me. I was doing Motivation Monday, Mommy Meetup, Life Unscripted with DaniMarie on Tuesday, Throw It Back Thursday on Thursday, Follow Me Friday on Fire Friday, and then we had Plan to Podcast. So at one point, I was doing 5 shows every week, speaking to like upwards of 20 people on the platform. I happen to like it too. It felt almost like an addiction, so to speak. Like you're just
Yeah.
constantly meeting new people. Yeah, you're
Hmm.
speaking about the things that feel, organic to you, things that are coming up in everyday life, or sometimes more intimately, depending on, what the conversation and topic is and who you invite on. And then at that point, I had to hire an admin person. I had to hire somebody that was doing all of the research on the back end, and then I had to hire somebody that would find the guests. And then I decided from all of those shows that I would move more into this lane, which is coaching people, because I was getting so many people to ask me, Jesus Christ, you're doing all these shows. How do you do it? So I will say that I totally get it. I get it. After a while, you're like, what can we do next? And then building up the network helps you to amass a following a lot quicker and get it over some of those learning curves quickly. So you've also experienced with how long you've been podcasting, you've also seen the industry change quite a bit. Yeah.
This it's my I'll say razor blade, because
Yeah.
this is not the new industry is not podcasting as what I knew it. Podcasting was getting away from the same five songs you heard on the radio, or getting, Howard Stern to move into podcasting, so they can have you on demand anytime. And then you had vloggers who did video blogs, who were actually out there with video and production and everything else. I could sit behind a mic anywhere across the country and do a podcast. Now everybody calls it a podcast, and it kind of take away from the aspect of where I first got into it at. But I still make my own lane, and sometimes I may do a video here or there. But mine is all audio. I don't
Okay.
do any. I don't do video. It's all audio. I may do some lives where I do a video, but that's another thing I may go into more next year, doing more video. But then you got the production behind worrying about doing the video and everything else, and so I never wanted to get into that. It's more, like you just said a minute ago, it's more therapy for me, because I get to,
Mm-hmm.
meet interesting people, or just talk about life experiences and help people with things that I may know about, or just open up and just have a spiritual moment. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. I've had that conversation too. A lot of streamers are now considering themselves podcasters, and where it was a little frustrating for the people who've put in the work, we have to also move with the trends and the times, unfortunately. So
Yeah,
now
yes,
there's now
cousin
there's
Ed.
podcasting and
Yeah.
all kind of stuff. What'd you say, Leonard?
Yes, cousin Ed. I am also just audio. I'm sitting here in my bedroom. You can't do
hmm
that for video because you have to set up cameras and all this. I don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
yes, you got to get
Mm-hmm.
a green screen. You got to try to worry about this, and I'd rather just sit and I could sit in my car right now and do a show by the lake and just tell people, how I feel, or I could bring Coach Danny on and talk about, how to podcast. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Um, I think we're coming to a close here. What is the very next action that you'll take? I want you guys to think about that. I did hear you guys already share, but for those of you catching the replay, think about what you're going to do. Again, when you come and participate in these webinars, a lot of us like to, just lend an ear to hear what's going on. And I get that too, but also take the time to apply and think about what this actually means for your platform. It does require, because the industry is changing. I'm going to do a recording tomorrow that talks about a recap of all of 2025, and even in this year, how much it has changed between Netflix and Spotify mergers. I just announced the other day, not I announced, but Charlemagne the God getting a $200 million extension on his contract to do more things with the Black Effect Podcast Network. And, Spotify changed the way that they do things. A lot of people were moving towards AI. Now, some of these big platforms are putting the hammer down and saying, we will not allow for AI, for you to be AI first or AI face forward, or however you want to say it. So there's a lot of changes that are happening, and we have to, as much as we can, keep up with the changes. I think one of the cool things about getting now on platforms like Netflix, it means that budgets and sponsorship dollars are also changing. So now, where there used to be these festivals where you go and pitch your documentary or your short film, now you might be able to go to the same platforms, the same festivals, and pitch a concept for production for your podcast, and get access to the same budget that was allocated for, those films and such at the festivals, now that they're all starting to kind of blur the lines and blend together. So it's a lot of changes. You have to stay abreast of all information. And this is why things like this are important. I live, eat, breathe, sleep podcasting. It's how I wake up and end my day. This is, like I said before, therapeutic for me at a time where I started during the pandemic, Cousin Ed, and so did Lenar. And so when I started, it was pregnant for the first time, losing my dad, just losing two jobs. It was just so much that this became my safe haven. And then as a result, I recognized how important it is for people of color to have these platforms because there's also intentions behind, changing the narrative, changing our stories. So that's why I show up every day. But you do have to put your best foot forward. You have to stay diligent. You have to do your research. You have to keep up with all of these different growing demands. So with that, I'm gonna wrap because now my kids keep pressing the doorbell. I will make sure you guys get these materials. And I did drop in the chat the different platforms. So for you to reference that, and Podbean is on there, but it's for you to do a comparison analysis of all of the different platforms based on your unique needs. I still recommend Substack. But yeah, we're gonna end it there. Any final remarks?
No, I'm just gonna say thank you to you, Danny, and I know you'll appreciate me for coming off here. And if you could do me a favor and drop an email so I can have your email.
What'd you say the last part? Whose email?
Your email. Could you just drop me an email at my email and just so I can have it?
Oh, okay. Fair
Because I
enough.
don't have your I don't have your email, so I'm like, oh,
All right.
that's the
All
easiest
right, will do. I'll
easiest
make
one.
sure you get
Well,
the replay, the materials, the email. Go ahead, Ed.
no, I was gonna say thank you very much for having it. Sorry I couldn't get on earlier, but definitely love to connect with both of y'all and check both of y'all. I've been checking you for a while, Danny, but Bernard, check out your podcast as well. And I'll try to get the links. I'm driving, so I'll try to see if I can copy it. If not, you can DM
Yeah,
me or something like that.
I will. I will email you. Don't worry about trying to copy and paste it. Safety first. All right, you guys, happy holidays. Make the best of it. I know some
Yes,
of us, it seems more like it's draining us than making us happy. So I just
yeah,
send
absolutely.
love. All right, I'll talk with everyone later.
Okay,
Thank
bye
you for
bye.
attending. Bye bye.